Okay, thank you for this opportunity to share a reflection on what Black History Month means to me. Did you know that Black History Month was first introduced into Parliament in December 1995? It was introduced by Jean Augustine, the first Black woman elected as a member of Parliament. I didn't know that. Award-winning author Lawrence Hill, who wrote the Book of Negroes, ponders why so many of us Canadians have read our American neighbors' novels, such as Uncle Tom's Cabin, To Kill a Mockingbird, and Roots, but haven't read our Black authors such as Dionne Brand or Afua Cooper and George Eliot Clark. And no, I haven't read these Canadian authors myself. As I reflect, it turns out that I don't know a lot about Black history and culture. Perhaps when I was growing up, all my family wanted to do was to assimilate into Canadian society. I was told to speak properly, not to use patois, and to dress properly, which I guess meant to speak and look like a regular Canadian. Sure, my aunts and mother would gather around at Christmas time or other holidays and share stories of home. And I remember a black and green felt map of Guyana hanging on the wall. But my Caribbean culture was never really passed down. And in school, it was no different. I did not have one lesson in my pre-university education on Black history, not one lesson. It strikes me, for this reason, it strikes me as odd to have 1 month, just 1 month out of the whole year to share and highlight Black history. And for that matter, it makes no sense to have only 1 month to celebrate and highlight our First Nations history and achievements. But that's another reflection. Sure, it's fine to celebrate our culture, to eat traditional foods and wear traditional clothing, but celebrating for 1 month doesn't make any sense to me anymore. When Black people are dying at the hands of police who have been sworn to serve and protect. Aren't we past the point of Black History Month? Aren't the tragic deaths of Black men and women of the past years proof enough that we have to do something more? Really? Shouldn't we be integrating more fully anti-racist education into our schools, communities, and dare I say, congregations, so that we need no longer to set aside a month for Black history? Yes, indeed. I think it's way past the point. I think we need to let go of just celebrating and highlighting during certain months and let the real work of anti-racism begin.
It is an honor to share my thoughts with you on Black History Month, when we recognize and celebrate the achievements of Black people everywhere. Everyone generally loves a celebration, so do I. But after much reflection, I'm saying no thank you to Black History Month. Not unless we're also going to celebrate White History Month. Of course, I can already see the thought bubble above your head saying, what? White History Month? My response is, exactly. There is no need, you say. But why? Is it because every month is in effect White History Month? Whereas only February, the shortest and coldest month of the year, is Black History Month. Right now, we are in the midst of a global pandemic caused by COVID-19. We're all working together to eliminate it. There's another pandemic raging as well, the pandemic of systemic racism. And it will take a similarly concerted effort by us all to end it. Many of you hearing me today, and I can see that, are white and have benefited from white privilege because you belong to the group who, through no fault of your own, is able to move seamlessly through society very easily. You can navigate, you can go wherever you want, whenever you want, without second guessing yourself. You never have to think or wonder, I wonder if I didn't get that job or housing because of my color, even though I'm very qualified. Well, Black people do that all the time, and it's very dispiriting. You'll often hear people say, Black people just have to work harder and pull themselves up by their bootstraps. And you would be right if there weren't so many systemic hurdles in their pathway. In my youth, I was a sprinter. I loved track and field. If I challenged you to a 100-meter race, I'd probably beat you. But if I gave you a 90-meter head start, no matter how fast I am and I could run, I would never catch you, even if you walked backwards to the finish line. Systemic racism is like that. White people have had a 400-year head start in North America since Blacks were brought here and enslaved. Growing up in Jamaica, I saw Black people in positions of power and influence, and I even thought one day I'd be prime minister. Then I smartened up and went into science. Many of you will say, you're not a racist. You don't see color. And I know what you mean. That is true. I believe you. But I would like you to be anti-racist. See my color as Black and actively work together to end systemic racism. Let's play a game. I'll say a few names and let's see how many you're familiar with. Oscar Peterson, John Glenn, Katherine Johnson, Elijah McCoy, the Three Musketeers. Are you familiar with those? Okay, so Oscar Peterson was easy. You know, he's a Black jazz pianist. His song, Hymn to Freedom, is still my favorite. So that was a giveaway. John Glenn, first white American astronaut to orbit the Earth. You knew that as well. Katherine Johnson, not many people might know, but she was one of the Black mathematicians who did the calculation to ensure that John Glenn got into space safely and came back. I didn't know that until I saw that film. Elijah McCoy, a Black man born in Canada and was the inventor of the automatic lubricator that made steam engine trains run efficiently. To this day, we still use the expression, the real McCoy, to say that the best of anything is the real thing, real McCoy. Now, the Three Musketeers, I will say, okay, it's not a name, but it's a book. And do you know that book was written by a Black man? Yep, Alexandre Dumas. He was from France. He wrote that book in 1844, and it was a world bestseller, but not many people knew that he was a Black person. In the Southern United States, they would never have liked that book. Okay, how about Tom Brady? Patrick Mahomes. Anyone knows those names? Okay, this is a trick question. They're the two quarterbacks playing in the Super Bowl today. It should be a fun game. The last story I want to mention briefly involves soccer. I love soccer. I watch soccer. I breathe soccer. I even play soccer. Well, not very well, but I played. Now, in 1998, the World Cup of Soccer was held in France, and wonder of wonders, Jamaica, my small island, qualified to participate. All of a sudden, everyone in Jamaica, the man on the street, wanted to speak French. Now, our second language in Jamaica is Spanish because we're surrounded by Spanish-speaking countries. And so everyone was, bonjour, monsieur, bonjour, Francois, bonjour, madame, s'il vous plaît. It was such a big joke, like, They never had a hope of going to France, but because they were invested in a team that was going to play in France, everybody wanted to be French speaking. Now, you'll wonder why I say this. The point is, we want for our Black youth to see people like them in positions of power and influence, to give them a goal to aim for, so that one day they'll say, I can probably do that. So I think Black history, like all other people's history, should be an integral part of the school's curriculum and taught to all children. It should just be history, period. How often we hear the word, the first Black this, the first Black that, the first Black leader for federal party, Miss Paul, the first Black vice president, Kamala Harris. And I applaud those achievements because it's nice to have that. But when was the last time you heard the first white this or the first white that? The first white CEO? Why? Is it because whites have stopped achieving? I don't think so. But that's the norm. We expect that whites will be at the top of the heap. Finally, I'll say, I have a dream. Okay, don't worry. I'm not going to do Dr. King's speech. I wouldn't do it justice. Plus, it's too long to memorize. But my dream is that in the not too distant future, my as yet unborn grand and great grandchildren, we see a time when Black History Month is obsolete. It'll be like the rotary telephone. What is that? They'll say. They'll probably say, our ancestors must have really loved their colors. They had a whole month for Black history. Black? I wonder if they also had Purple History Month, Turquoise History Month, Blue History Month. I hope that day comes soon. Thank you.
Black History Month. My relationship with my Blackness has been in flux since as long as I can remember. I grew up in downtown Toronto, born into a big, boisterous family. My mother, Juleth, hails from Jamaica, and my father from Quebec. Growing up in a mixed household among such diverse friends, I never really gave much thought to the color of my skin. If asked to describe myself, I'd probably list off what I'll call my identity highlights. I speak French, I sing in choir, I play soccer, I have 3 brothers, 2 sisters, and 2 dogs. I'm not sure exactly when this shifted, but as I entered my teenhood, I started to look more closely at who I was and where I fit into the world. And I realized I'd have to start including more details in my identity highlights, mainly because I kept getting this question, what are you? This question followed me around like a duckling imprinting on his mama duck. Such an odd question because the answer is obvious. I'm human, what are you? No, they'd chuckle. Clearly I misunderstood. Where are you from? Oh, I'd start. I'm Canadian, born in Toronto. No, they'd stop me, still unsatisfied. What's your background? Ah, I think there it is. You're not asking me about myself. No, you want me to explain why I look the way I do, why my skin is brown, why my hair curls and coils, and why my eyes are light and hazel. In other words, you want to know where I fit. And so I would oblige and say my mom is Jamaican, my dad is Quebecois. Ah, they'd say, finally satisfied, finally understanding. And just like that, I found myself being sorted. I'd always been both Black and white, but suddenly there was a need to categorize my attributes as either Black or white. My hair, definitely Black. My eyes, white. My nose, white. My lips, Black. What became clear was that there was a negative and positive connotation to both sides. It was always subtle, but it was always there. And it didn't stop at my physical appearance. The way I spoke was too white, not good. The way I danced was Black, but that was a good thing. My hair was Black, but not too Black, because I'd spend entire days straightening my hair, burning my curls into submission, even convincing my mom to let me perm my hair with harsh chemicals. My peers would joke that I was an Oreo, black on the outside, white on the inside, or that I was whitewashed. I think that one's pretty self explanatory. And I would laugh along, sometimes even play up the joke, not wanting to draw attention to the fact that it bothered me. I developed skills to avoid these titles, like code switching. For those who don't know, code switching is when you customize your style of speech to the audience being addressed. In my case, that meant playing up my blackness in certain circles and playing up my whiteness in others. Either way, it always felt like acting. I was walking a mixed race tightrope, and it was exhausting. It wasn't until I went away to school that I started to rethink everything. Up until that point, I had let my peers dictate how I felt about my blackness. So I began to re-examine my relationship with both my white and black heritage. I stopped straightening my hair and let my natural curls take up as much space as they wanted. And oh my, can these curls take up space? I began to re-examine my relationship with myself, and I realized that I'm already both black and white. I know that I still have much to learn and much to unlearn when it comes to the complexities of identity. But what I know now is I don't need to act or look a certain way to claim my black title or to prove my worth.
Thanks everyone for allowing me to share my thoughts about Black History Month. What does Black History Month mean to me? Well, it's complicated. A few years ago, I visited Chicago with my sisters. We spent a lot of time touring around the city, taking in the sights and visiting museums and art galleries. And what struck me most about the city was the presence of Blackness, not just socially, but civically, historically. From the artists on display in the museums, to the statues in Millennium Park, to the bust of the founder of Chicago, a Haitian-born pioneer named Jean-Baptiste Point de Sable, in Chicago's Magnificent Mile. This aspect of Chicago was in stark contrast to Toronto, a city where Black history was largely absent or difficult to find. In 2016, the year after we visited Chicago, the Royal Ontario Museum apologized for an exhibit that had opened there in 1989 called Into the Heart of Africa, which deliberately depicted Africa and Africans from the perspectives of colonialists, missionaries, and invaders. At the time, when my sisters and I had gone to see that exhibit, rather than being horrified by the frankly racist imagery, we had basically shrugged and said, biggers. You see, because as far as we had known up to that point in 1989, the mainstream had rarely been inclined to depict Black history from the perspective of Black people. Nowadays, well, when I visited the Dutch Golden Age exhibit at the Royal Ontario Museum in 2019, there was an introduction at the entrance noting that the Golden Age had been brought about by trade. Then there was a list of the things that they traded, ending with, quote, and other commodities. And I stood looking at that word, commodities, knowing full well that those commodities were my ancestors. So at least some mainstream institutions are not necessarily sure what to do with Black history. And I don't even really know what the mainstream is exactly. I just know that Black history is not generally part of it. I've been an educator for going on 30 years now. And when I sit on committees planning Black History Month events in whichever school or faculty or organization, I always end up wrestling with the question, what is Black History Month for? What is the work that we want it to do? Every year, we highlight a list of historical Black figures and their accomplishments. Also, there might be a spotlight on Black experiences in Canada since the 17th century. Often the Royal Ontario Museum and Art Gallery of Ontario and other cultural institutions create spaces for Black artists to show their work. All of that is supplemented with public lectures, panel discussions, lessons in schools, and tweets and commemorative videos by politicians. And once in a while, as was the case in 2018, Black History Month might be chosen as the month to release a blockbuster movie about, for example, a Black superhero in a mythical, never colonized African state called Wakanda. I'm not going to diss any of those things. For me, though, Black history is in my bones. It's family history interwoven with the social histories of various nations in Africa, Europe, the Caribbean, and North America. I don't need to have Black History Month in order to either know about Black history or celebrate it. But it's nice to see Blackness out there and present in a way that I had seen in Chicago as part of the local history, embedded in its fine arts and civic memorials. Because this annual celebration exists, I expect the institutions with and within which I interact to acknowledge it, and I expect the individuals within them who I call friends to celebrate with me. But Black History Month can never really do the work that needs to be done to integrate Black history 12 months a year into what the mainstream sees as its history. And there are reasons why we as a society need this integration that would require way more time to describe than I have here. You know, on the one hand, I wish Black History Month wasn't necessary. But on the other, I still enjoy it because the celebration is nice. It's an opportunity to share with friends, and I expect it will continue to adapt to whatever social milieu or historical moment in which it is celebrated. So, what does Black History Month mean to me? On the one hand, it means celebrating Black achievements and historical presence while correcting and filling in gaps in how the mainstream tells its history. But on the other, it's a time that highlights the absence of Black history in the other 11 months of the year. So, yeah, it's complicated.